How's it going, you wonderful people? I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and in this video we'll be talking about Shira and maybe a little bit about Midir as well. Now there isn't a whole lot of information on Shira, so we're gonna have to use the clues we're left with and apply some of that good old-fashioned interpretation. But we're all Dark Souls fans here, so this is not news to us. Let's jump right into things. We'll start on where Shira could come from, who she is. Her armor reads, Armor of Shira, Knight in Service to Fillianore, a rare woman's piece from ancient times. With a spun gold shawl draped over the silver breastplate and a green woven skirt, this armor offers a subdued yet refined elegance apropos to both a handmaiden of the princess and one whose veins course with royal blood. So we know she's from ancient times for one, and that she's a handmaiden to Princess Fillianore, and that her veins course with royal blood. We often see people, particularly women of royal families, being handmaidens to their own kin, daughters to mothers, sisters to sisters, so that isn't uncommon at all. Now that isn't to say Shira is some long-lost bastard child of Gwyn or anything. I think her veins course with the blood of royalty in a different manner, but we'll cover that in a bit. There is a line of dialogue from Shira that vaguely maps out who she is. She says, I am Shira, daughter of the Duke, descendant of God's entrusted friend to Midir. So let's piece that all together. The only Duke we ever hear of at all in Dark Souls is Seath, right? And the gods are from Anor Londo, of whom she is descended. And, well, being a friend to Midir is pretty straightforward, but how can we make all that make sense? She's Seath's daughter, but is descended from the gods? What in the what? There's definitely some fuckery going on there, but let me explain how I perceive this. So we could argue that there's probably another Duke out there somewhere, which does make sense, but the seller for me betting on Seath is in the description for Shira's crown, which reads, Crown of Shira, Knight in Service to Fillianore, finely crafted with silver and fashioned with a pearl from a man-eater shell. The man-eater shells which we find residing in Crystal Cave where Seath houses the primordial crystal, which helps make more sense of it for me. Now, there are also man-eater shells in Ash Lake, but that's still basically symbolizing archdragons, and Seath technically was one of those, even though that bitch ain't even got legs. So here's what I think happened. We know Seath loved his experiments. We know he had some sort of fetish as well for handmaidens, for whatever reason. I ain't gonna kink shame though. But I think Shira was one of Seath's successful experiments. Now, I don't believe that would make her a crossbreed, as many people believe Priscilla is also an experiment of Seath, and that's why she is a crossbreed, but I think that more so involves straight-up dragon DNA, which I don't believe Shira has. But that stuff explains why she'd call herself Daughter of the Duke, but not quite how she's a descendant of the gods and why she isn't a crossbreed. So we know that Gwyn gave Seath a portion of his own soul when he granted him the dukedom. I believe that is Shira's lineage. The experiment conducted by Seath to create Shira was powered by a part of the soul of Gwyn, which is the most hillbilly-ass episode of Jerry Springer you'd ever see, would technically make Shira a daughter of Seath and yet still a descendant of the gods. Which prompts me to believe that Shira was created with the sole intention of being Fillianore's handmaiden and protector. Gwyn likely knew for some time his intentions with his youngest daughter, and needed to make sure her sleep was protected. Thus, Shira was created with a duty, but not just Shira. I believe Midir was born of the same volition, to fend back the dark and guard the princess's sleep. So let me explain how I believe that happened. We know Seath discovered the primordial crystal and how that was a source of the dragon's immortality. We also know Seath is the grandfather of sorceries and did a lot of work with crystals that are not of the meth variety. Midir's soul says, Midir, descendant of archdragons, was raised by the gods and owing to his immortality was given a duty to eternally battle the dark, a duty that he would never forget even after the gods perished. With him being raised by the gods, it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that it means it was from birth, meaning he likely hatched under the care of the gods, which makes Fillianore's egg make a lot more sense, and I believe it likely to be Midir's egg. Now, just as a friendly reminder, because I've gone over this a few times with people, Fillianore's egg is not the key to her rest. The egg is not what is screwing with the space-time continuum. It is in fact, as we hear multiple times and witness, that Fillianore's slumber is the only thing doing this. The egg cracking is just what wakes her lazy ass up. Anyways, I think Seath, using the power of the primordial crystal and a dash of mad science, created Midir. From his soul we can create the old Moonlight sorcery, which reads, "The sword is named after moonlight, but it is slightly different than the one fashioned of the pale drake Seath. Perhaps it is rooted in an older memory from not long after the beginning." And I think it's important that it says it's rooted in an older memory not long from the beginning, and is what makes me believe Midir was constructed from the power of the primordial crystal. That crystal is basically where Seath learned a bunch of shit involving sorceries, and probably the moonlight itself, which is why Seath's is different. It isn't rooted in a memory that exists from near the beginning, which the crystal probably did. If Midir was created from the crystal, it would make sense that the moonlight we get from him is indeed similar to the one Seath discovered studying it, but is still much older. Then there's the fact that Midir himself is covered in crystals, unlike we've seen on any dragon or drake alike. You could think that the crystals came from his fall to dark, but I wouldn't agree with that. We've seen a lot of mofos screwed over by the dark, and none of them started sprouting crystals. Crystals basically mean one thing in Dark Souls, and that's that fabulous bitch Seath. The only crystals we find here are the ones on Midir and the ones in his domain, which is the area we first encounter him, and likely why he's defending that location specifically. He's probably got that dark dragon breath, which, in hindsight, would have been a dope spell to be able to get. Anyways, so Shira, Midir, and Fillianore all set off on their journey to the Ring City, one tasked with sleeping, the others to protect that sleep, which could also explain why Shira and Midir are such close friends, as they were probably raised and trained together in the same fashion. But of course, all of this is open to interpretation, and these are just my beliefs. And thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, I hope that you will, and please be sure to follow me on Twitter for all kinds of juicy updates. The link for that and all my social media is down in the description below. And be sure to come talk to me on my Discord server as well. We're constantly chatting lore there, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you all have a great day. Until next time.